Welcome to Spilled Ink. Welcome to another episode of Spilled Ink. I am joined today by Bellevue football coach Michael Kneip. Michael, how's it going?
It's going good. Yeah, happy Friday. Hope you're having a good day. And, not too many Fridays left when we're done football. So really excited.
I know it's crazy how fast. By the way, calling you Michael is strange for me. Like I don't. I think that's probably the first time in my life I've actually called you by your first name. So
Yeah, that's
weird.
good. My mom calls me Michael. So, she'd be happy to know that, you call me Michael instead of Mike or something like that. So I appreciate it.
Nice. Now, are you guys? The first thing I was thinking of today was Fort Worden. Do you guys still do that?
Oh, yeah. We still not at Fort Warden, unfortunately, anymore because they shut down the campgrounds there. So we do the same concept though. We went to Western this year and had a great time, and the people at Western were awesome, and actually a beautiful campus, and it was a great experience for our kids. But the concept's still the same.
Okay. And when did Fort Worden end?
Last year was last year. They told us probably mid-January this year that they're no longer taking groups, which again was news to us. So we scrambled, and again, very thankful for the people at Western making us space and all that kind of stuff.
Was it like it had to be kind of bittersweet, right? Like that was such a tradition, that place, the same, like routine every year.
Yeah, yeah, it was tough for me, and I think tough for the other coaches. Right, I've been doing it for you know forever, and so yeah, it was different, but we adapted, and out of our control. But yeah, that was a special place. There's nothing like the isolation that you have there. You can't really simulate when you can get DoorDash right at Western. You can't get that at Forward, and so different experience, but again, still the same kind of concept.
Mhm. And what does it mean to do something like that? Like, what is the true value of being able to take your kids away and have it just be about the team for that? And especially now, as connected as everyone is to the outside world, right? To be able to sort of almost go to your own version of a training camp.
Yeah, and it's invaluable, right? And it's an immersive experience where I think, you get kids these days from all different backgrounds and different personalities. And, I think the cliques are even stronger than they were when I was a kid. But, everybody's there and there's nowhere to go. You can't go home to your bed and you can't go, order, different food and, you're there, right? There's no TV, there's no video games. And so that immersive experience where everybody's in one place, in a bunk room and, has the same exact opportunities is really unique. And I think it's something that we pride ourselves as a program, and it really, makes everybody friends, right? Because 24/7 for 5 days, or whatever it is a lot when you don't have any distractions, no girls, no, all that kind of stuff, high school boys. So, yeah, no, it's invaluable, I think, for us. And it's so rewarding for us as coaches as well.
Mhm. Are there ever times when the kids are like what exactly is this, right? Or I'm guessing the kids that are legacy to the program just know what it is and probably look forward to it. But I'm trying to think of myself as a teenage boy now and being like, wait, you're telling me that I'm going to completely disconnect for everything,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's kid to kid. I think for these sophomores, as you mentioned, like that's a lot, right? Some of these kids are the first time away from home, right? And then you're going away from home and doing something really hard, right? For long, long days and long periods of time. And you don't get to, have that dependence on your parents. So I think for the young kids, it's really, shocking or whatever you want to call it. The older kids, obviously, they they've been there a few times, but every year is so different because the personality of the team's so different, right? Which with that comes different challenges and different opportunities for them to grow as a team. And this team this year is really young, right? And so it was such a great experience. I think it's one of my favorite camps I've ever hosted. If you want to call me the host of the camp, but yeah, so it was a great experience because again, it was so much because there were so many young kids this year.
Mhm. And do you find yourself, like when you're talking to the kids, do you reflect back on your own experience a lot, or is it mostly looking forward, right? Because you have that,
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, it's a blend, right? I mean, I think that like my experience and like the way that it operated back then was is a lot different, right? Because like phones were a thing when I was in high school, but not really. Like not everybody had an iPhone, right? And so you appreciate things differently. And like there's so much value in tradition, right? Especially when tradition drives good outcomes. Like we've had success here in the past. And so I think there's a piece that you want to keep the tradition and the core of it, because I think it's like a rite of passage for kids who play here, right? To be able to do that and kind of check that off your list. But then also kind of adapting, right? Like, every team, again, the guys mentioned, has its own personality. And with that, again, becomes different opportunities to help us grow. But, the mission's all the same around helping these kids, become closer and leave, with all but being best friends.
Hmm. And, one of the things I was also thinking about, and one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is looking back, right? And I remember when you were playing, and the thing that always I think impressed me because you played with some great players, um, both on the line and skill guys. And I'm not sure that there was a player in that Bellevue program that got as much out of their ability as you did. I mean, they're just in talking to Butch and Pat,
Yeah.
like being a guy that worked to get every ounce out of their, ability. And what do you remember? Do you feel that way? Like, how do you remember that time?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing we pride ourselves as a program on that. So I think that's what people ask me about Butch and Pat. I think that they got the most out of every player. And luckily, I was a part of that, right? And but like that was something that we really did. The Bellevue greats. I think the Bellevue legends in a lot of Bellevue people's minds are, you know, like Cam Warren or Scott Whiting or Matt Gilbert, or like guys who didn't go play in the NFL, right? But there's like unbelievable high school players. And so that was definitely something that, I pride myself as a coach, probably because as a player, right? I'm like, being an overachiever, right? And the only way to overachieve is by maximizing your capability. And again, I think that that's what Bush and Pat and that program did better than anybody, right? And we still pride ourselves in that. I don't think we've had the most talented roster in the state, of my 8 years here, like 1 to 22, right? And I don't think we ever really did, except for maybe like 2022, right? But that was a different beast. But every other year, I think you can say, even my senior year, right? Like Lake's probably had more talent than us, right? And then, a bunch of the recent years, there's been a lot more talented teams, right? But again, we get a lot out of our guys because of the brotherhood and the discipline and probably the structure of the offense.
Mhm. And with the precision that you learn to operate that offense, and I know you probably have your own spin on things, right? But the precision with which you were able to learn the blocking scheme, how much does that now help translate as you're now coaching this system?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it teaches you that anyone can do it, right? And that's again, I think of like when I think about a football program versus like a team or like a really talented team, right? Is sustainability regardless of your talent pool, right? And I think my first 2 years here, I think we get the most out of those teams than any of my other years coaching. Like we didn't have a kid thinking about playing college football my first 2 years, right? But we still made it to the semifinals, and it had nothing to do with anything besides the system, right? And like you have a 180-pound guard, like there should always be a 180-pound kid at Bellevue. Maybe that changes, right? But that kid's an all league kid, right? And then you take like a superstar version of that, which is Dimitri, right, from last year. But they're doing the same job, and the play executes the same, regardless if the kid's going to Oregon or if he's just going to become a guy at UW as a frat guy,
Mhm.
right? And so that's what I love about the system. It's so repeatable, and it makes the sustainability of the program for success on and off the field.
Mhm. And I now as I kind of get back into it, and it's been so cool to be able to go on the sidelines and see people that I recognize from, now like almost 20 years ago, right? Um, what what compelled you to get into coaching and specifically go back to Bellevue?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, Yeah, I didn't think about coaching, right, or being a head coach. It's kind of like a really kind of funny story, right? Especially when you play it back to like Coach Peterson or whoever, I still talk to, like from my old coaches, right? I just wanted to volunteer. Yeah, I missed the game. Obviously, the game provided a great life for me and opened a ton of doors from my childhood getting to UW and then going and getting a great job. Like it was such a great platform for me. And I really believe in the sport and what it does for, people in general. And I don't think there's anything else like it. And so, I volunteered and then kind of again stumbled into coaching. And now, it's addicting in the terms of like the giving back to the community And again, once you start doing a couple of cycles, you get like, oh, just one more year, one more year, one more year. I like that sophomore grade. So like, and not as a football team, but as kids, right? And so, I'm in that cycle now, and again, it just happens to be at the high school I played at, right? Which makes it really nice. And I think that early on in my coaching career, that gave me a lot more grace than if I was somewhere else. Maybe they wouldn't have given me all the trust and the grace to be able to do that. But it's been fun, I think, for certain kids that have been around the program and other coaches or whatever, just to see me grow up through it, right? Like I've evolved as a coach into a dad, into all this kind of stuff. So it's been a great journey. But I've never thought about coaching anywhere else, just because I love it here, I love the community. But yeah, the door opened here, not that I chose or actively went after it.
Isn't that what it's all about, right? When you really start to think of it, I used to have aspirations of, I want to write about pros or just college or, like I want to get to this level. And then after stepping away and then coming back to it, it's like, oh, wait, actually, I like these kids, right? Like
Yeah.
I like being around these kids all the time. They like having me around, like as you get older to have teenagers like in some way, shape, or form think you're cool. Like I think kind of helps me stay young. I don't know maybe if that's the same as a coach, but isn't that what it ends up becoming is that seeing these kids grow and being able to do something for them is kind of addicting.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's so, gratifying in the process. And again, watching a 14-year-old boy become an 18-year-old, young man. And then the cycle starts all over again when you see these kids start to graduate college and get jobs. And then, the light bulbs start to click of like the things you told them, like, oh, you were right. Or like, oh, I totally understand that, which makes it even more, and want to invest more and more and more in. And then, I think again, it's a beautiful cycle of every 4 years that anyone who's coached anything kind of gets like that journey, and yeah, it's been really fun.
Mhm. And, is it one of those things where every year you have to kind of, think about it as, I know that you've got definitely it's not like you have an easy job, right? Like, you have a job that takes a lot of time and coaching football is a full-time job for all intents and purposes. And to have a family and, is it something that is just now become part of your life so much that like, oh, I'm just going to do this for as long as I can, or do you have to evaluate it year after year?
Yeah, I think you have to evaluate it year after year, especially from the family side, right? Like, I mean, I've got two little daughters who, I totally adore and love, right? And then I just think you got to check yourself of like, am I doing what's best for the program? I think as someone who really cares about this football program and community, if there's someone who could take over and I felt like they would do a better job than me, I feel like I'd be doing disservice to the alumni and to what we've all built to step away, right? But
Mhm.
nobody's came knocking at the door wanting to take it yet, and so until that day comes. But that's something we definitely think about. But again, I love it here. I think it's good, and I think it makes me a better husband, makes me a better father, makes me a better son, makes me all that stuff. I think it all plays together. And then you're showing, my own kids like commitment and doing things you're passionate about, regardless of the sacrifice you have to make. I think it's a really good, way to model it. And we have so much support in the community. We have tons of coaches and all that kind of stuff. So it's still really enjoyable, and I don't see us, stopping. But it's been a great ride.
Mhm. And then, the last time I was out, right before the summer started, and I can't believe it's been that much time to where we're actually starting a season now, right? But I know you mentioned that you talk to Coach Pete from time to time, and how because just in talking to you and in my interactions with Coach Pete, it seems like there's definitely a lot of similarities, right? To like how you're going about your life and how he was as a coach and all that. And how much do you value those conversations and getting to continue to, pick his brain and just have him, part of your, personal and professional experience?
Yeah, it's invaluable, right? I think you look at the way that he modeled the way so effectively for us when we were at UW, and how large of an impact he taught us, right? Just being a good person, and then really having him as that A standard, right? and how young men are looking for people like that in their lives, and you start thinking about there's a shortage of that out there, especially with the changes in dynamics and demographics in the area, right? And so those conversations again like kind of refuel my fire every time because he's that to me, right? And so it drives me to want to be better, right? To be a better role model for these young men, and find other coaches do the same thing. And so yeah, every time we talk, it's never about football, right? It's always about like you as a leader, right? And impact and being able to build other leaders and being able to hopefully impact these kids' lives, by being a great role model. So yeah, no, he's been huge, and I think 99% of the way I coach is through him, and the way he taught us, right? And then the blend because totally different personalities with him and Butch, right? And then even different with him and Sark. But I was very fortunate to play for three of really high caliber head coaches.
And that is interesting because, in a lot of ways, I was around all three of those guys too,
Yeah,
right? Like I worked for Sark his last year, obviously spent a ton of time around Butch and Coach Pete, working with him in a different role. And they couldn't be more different. I think maybe like demeanor wise, Butch and Coach Pete have something similar, but Sark is definitely his own,
yeah,
own guy. And I was actually just telling somebody yesterday that I can't remember who it was, but I told them that, if Sark had asked me to run out into traffic, I would do it. Like,
yeah, yeah,
like his Friday night speeches were like I couldn't even imagine what it was like to be a player because I was just operating from a content perspective and I was like, man,
yeah,
I want to work so hard for this guy. And then but with Butch and Coach Pete, it's more, it's not it's sort of like a maybe like a parental role sort of where or like a
yeah,
mentor, sort of a
yeah.
situation. I don't know if you would echo that or if I'm on the right track here.
Yeah, no, I think I see Bush more as like a Nick Saban, right? I mean, in
Right.
terms of like at that point where I was playing for him, right? He was it's like a god, right? You bet maybe again this is the way that you look at it is like second grade, when you start junior football at Bellevue to when you play your senior year, it's like you don't even think about really interacting with him because he's so intimidating. But same thing, his standard was so high, but like kind of probably the closest thing to like Nick Saban I've ever been around, where it's like whatever he says goes, and because he's got like this kind of aura about him, right? Which is again, but not crazy emotional either way, right? Coach Pete's obviously really, really level-headed, and it's getting funny to think that they've all interacted because like having them all in the same room would be really funny to watch. But yeah, no, Sark's energy is contagious, and they're all themselves and have been really great. And then, again, Coach Pete's the humblest of the X's and O's guys, right? But probably can do it just as good as any of those people, right? But it's been a good journey to kind of reflect on that and like their personalities and how they've acted or how they behave. But then, just as I've gotten older, I've mirrored different personalities of them, right? As my life's changed too, which has kind of been a fun experience.
I think the one thing that's cool about thinking that we got to interact with those three guys is that when I really boil it down, they're all different, but they all know who they are,
Yeah.
right? Like they're not pretending, right? Like, like Sark couldn't do it like Coach Pete because that's not his personality. Butch wouldn't do it like
Right.
Coach Pete, like they would, none of them would do it, but they were so committed to doing it their way and it worked. And I think that I appreciate that because, in what I do, if I'm trying to emulate or do something someone else is doing, then I'm not true to myself, right? And I'm certain that that's the same for you.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And that's always been the feedback, from Coach Pete, right? Is you just gotta be yourself, right? And I remember when Coach Pete came to UW, one of my best friends, Marcus Henry, was playing at Boise, right? And it was weird transition time because their staff turnover was the higher within, right? And so you had Coach Pete saying it, right? And then the next coach comes in and says the same thing as Pete, it's not him, right? And so, I remember him saying that and kind of documenting like I'm not going to try to do what Bush did because I'm not Bush. I'm not going to try to be Pete because I'm not Pete, right? And you just have to be yourself, right? And hopefully you adapt and learn and get quicker and all that kind of stuff, which again, as I've grown, grown up a little bit, right? Like it's definitely changed from year one to year whatever it is now.
How many years has it been now?
6 or 7, yeah, 6 or 7.
Wow.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. It's
Dang.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that you're the same way, right? Like as you become a parent and live your life, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, right? Like I thought it was just January, and now we're starting
Yeah.
school again, and it's another football season, and just the pace picks up so fast, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like slow it down.
Yeah.
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 Um, so now to kind of transitioning to this football season, how do I know you have a younger team? How are you guys looking?
Yeah, young, right? But young and fun, right? Like, I think this is the most fun I've had coaching in a long time. Probably just if you think of the cycle of my coaching career, like, I come in young, and you try to win right away, right? And like if you don't win a state championship, that at least that's the way I'm wired. It's like the season was a failure, right? So my first 2 years, we lost to East Side, I think in semifinals both years. Like those were really tough years. Next, like there was no choice but to win. And then COVID hits, and then kind of changes the wiring in my brain a little bit. Where then the next year we end up winning a state championship, and then we lose, then we win, then we lose. Right? Like it's been an interesting journey because we kind of have the same group of guys through those 4 years. Right. And now that's like a complete turnover of identity and demographic of the team. And Bellevue as a city, becoming a city school has really been prevalent or, now. And so, yeah, like, this is the most fun I think I've had coaching because the youngness of the team. And then I think like the off the field impact that we're having. But this, like the young, you have so many young kids. It's like, it's almost like we're a junior football team, like, teach them how to tie their shoes still.
Hmm.
But, it's still the same standard, which again has been really fun. But when you have a majority of your kids, 35 sophomores to 15, like it's a bunch of 15-year-old boys, not 18-year-old boys like we had
Yeah.
last year. So again, it'll be a really fun year. And, what's awesome, what I'm hanging my hat on is we're gonna get better every single day.
Hmm.
Where last year, unfortunately, I think I told you the same thing. Like we played our best football game week 2, right? And then it was slowly declining from there. And we played our worst football game, I think, in the state championship game. I don't think we could have played, much worse. But that will be the opposite this year. When we make it back to the state championship game this year, like we'll be playing our best football. I can guarantee you that,
Hmm.
which is again a fun part of the process versus like hanging on for dear life, kind of like we did last year.
And while you do say young football team, a lot of talent seems like, right? Like those sophomores could be really good. And I think the nice thing too is to have guys like Raylan and Max in the program to set that example for them.
Oh yeah. No, the senior grade is really talented. Like there's talent all over the roster. You think about our skill positions are really crazy talented, right? Like there's guys who are third string running backs who would be, if there was 2 years ago, we'd be like, oh my gosh, this kid's gonna be the best kid to ever play here,
Hmm.
right? And now they're like third and buried in the depth chart. So, Max, Raylan, Trevin King, right? And then you have like Matthias Kleppo and like the core group of seniors, there's not a lot of them, are really high end, right? Kind of again similar to last year's team where the 6 seniors that we had were really good. And then you have a great kind of core in the junior grade. It's just the majority of the guys are in that sophomore grade, which again, I think we're going to be an unbelievable football team. And I think we're going to be really fast, I think, with a lot of young, big kids that will get better throughout the year, kind of, and overachieve and again, grow and adapt, as the team figures out their identity. But yeah, no,
Hmm.
we're really lucky, to have Max and Raylan and AJ Morton and, Desmond Lloyd. There's a lot of talent on this roster. Played a lot of football,
Hmm.
which is really exciting.
And then also, you talk about just the development of the program, and then, you have some awesome coaches too, right? Like being able to, bring in other new guys that have been around and done it at a high level. Like do you just see your coaching staff just getting better and better every year?
Yeah, I think as you see, like all of us are going through the cycle together, right? Like many times, right? Especially with our OCDC and line coaches being so stable, right? And like there's beauty in that, right? But then when you bring in new blood, he starts questioning it. and that'll either reroute you in like your philosophy, like, oh, this is good that we're doing this. Like I think there's times where some new guys in the staff are like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, "That's good, right?" I mean,
Yeah.
right? Like I think when it's offensive at first, but then I get home and I'm questioning something, and I'm like, "Oh wait, that's good." If you think that means we're doing something completely different than the other schools are doing,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I'm like, tell us. I mean, the more things you tell me are crazy, the more I'm going to do them because then that again that gives us an advantage, I think, over the other teams. But we're always open doors, right? Like if anyone wants to come coach and help kids, like I'm always doors open. Nothing, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that what people realize when they're new is like there isn't any special sauce here. It's just the way with the standard probably that we operate at inconsistently,
Mhm.
right? And so it's kind of funny to have the new voices come in and but get us better in so many ways too.
Mhm. Yeah, that is the cool thing, just being able to, go back to a workout and like, oh, this is 20 years later and it's so different, but it's the same, right? Like there's still a Resore on, on the coaching
Yeah.
staff, right? Like, it's so cool. And, I'm so appreciative to get, to come and watch you guys and, get a little bit of an inside look. And, so thank you for inviting me back in. Um, and yeah, I think, great, best of luck this season. And I think that's all I got for you today.
No, I really appreciate it and appreciate you covering the kids. I think, I've mentioned that many times, like kids getting called by you or getting interviewed, like, that can change their confidence level. So really appreciate the love, all the love and support you give the kids. And really look forward to seeing you hopefully soon on our sideline with a bunch of these young kids, running all over the place.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm already planning out my season. So you guys are high on the list to get there as quickly as possible. Although I think week one I'm gonna go see Pat and Kennedy against Bothell and then go from there. So but yeah,
Nice.
I'll definitely get out to see you guys. And I there's one thing that I always do count on is that you guys being in the postseason. So that's a few guaranteed games right there.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, appreciate it.
Yeah.